The town of Midway was known for its history and old buildings. One such building was the abandoned hospital on the outskirts of town. It was said that this place was once a center for medical research, but something went wrong, and the hospital was closed indefinitely. St. Peter's School, built next to the hospital, was also abandoned. It served as a haven for children until a strange incident occurred, after which the school was left empty. Local residents preferred to avoid these places, claiming that something strange and frightening was happening there. A group of paranormal researchers arrived in town, eager to uncover the mysteries of the abandoned buildings. The group consisted of Mark, Emily, and Jake. They decided to spend the night in the hospital and school to capture any signs of paranormal activity. Night fell, and the group headed to the hospital. The deserted corridors echoed with their footsteps. Mark turned on the camera, and the team began their investigation. From the first minutes, something was amiss. Whispers, strange shadows flickering in the corners. Suddenly, Emily felt a cold breath on her neck. She turned around, but saw no one. "Guys, something is definitely wrong here," she whispered. Their camera recorded a strange sound, similar to a child's cry. They headed to the operating room, where rumors said terrible experiments had been conducted. The room was filled with old operating tables and rusty tools. Suddenly, the lights began to flicker, and the doors slammed shut on their own.
Jake tried to open the door, but it was locked tight. At that moment, they heard footsteps approaching. The researchers' hearts froze. Suddenly, a bloody message appeared on one of the walls. "Leave before it's too late."
Fear gripped the team, but they decided to continue their investigation. In the next room, they found an old diary. It contained horrifying details of experiments on patients. According to the records, doctors were conducting experiments to create the perfect soldier. Suddenly, they heard a child's laugh coming from the darkness. Mark shone his flashlight into the corner of the room. There stood a little girl in old hospital clothes. She looked at them with empty eyes and quietly whispered, "Help me." Emily tried to approach the girl, but she vanished in an instant. The team realized it was the ghost of one of the children who had been experimented on. At that moment, the doors opened again, and they hurried out of the operating room. They headed to the school, hoping to find answers there. Inside the school, it was just as eerie. Old desks, broken boards, and shattered windows created a sense of abandonment and despair. Suddenly, the old school bell rang. They entered a classroom and saw the words, "Welcome, children," written on the board. As soon as they read it, the doors slammed shut again. Mark noticed that all the desks had the names of the children who once studied there written on them. Suddenly, they heard someone playing the piano in the music room. The sound was piercing and frightening. When they approached the room, they saw the piano playing by itself. Suddenly, the keys stopped, and they heard footsteps behind them. Jake turned around and saw the silhouette of a person in an old-fashioned school uniform. He was slowly approaching them, and they felt a chill envelop their bodies. The silhouette disappeared, leaving behind only a cold breath. The last time they returned to the hospital, they heard a loud scream. Following the sound, they found an old operating room filled with foggy light. Inside stood the ghosts of patients, looking at them with despair and anger. One of the ghosts, an old doctor, began to speak. "You shouldn't be here. Leave before it's too late." The ghosts started to approach them, and the team realized they were in mortal danger. They ran to the exit, trying to escape.
They ran out of the operating room, but the fog began to thicken, making it difficult to see. The screams and moans of the ghosts grew louder. Emily felt something cold grab her arm. She screamed and yanked herself forward, breaking free from the icy grip.
The team ran down the corridor, trying to find an exit. Along the way, they saw a room filled with children's toys. The toys were stained with blood, and a quiet cry came from a dark corner. Emily froze, seeing a little boy sitting in the corner, holding a broken toy.
The boy lifted his head and said, "They hurt me. Please help me." At that moment, the light began to flicker, and the toys started moving on their own. The team realized this place was full of malevolent spirits and ran further, leaving the boy behind.
In the corridor, they saw a door labeled Exit. But as they approached, the door slammed shut, and an ominous laugh came from behind it. Jake tried to open the door, but it was locked. Ghosts began to approach them from the darkness again.
They ran in the opposite direction and found themselves in the hospital basement. It was even darker and colder here. The walls were covered in mold, and the sound of dripping water echoed from the corners. Mark noticed an old metal door and pointed to it. "Let's try in there," he said. They opened the door and entered a small room filled with old medical records and instruments. On the table lay an old amulet. Emily picked it up, and suddenly, the ghost of a woman appeared in the room. The woman looked frightened and begged for help. "They killed us. Please help us," she whispered. The team realized it was the spirit of one of the victims. The ghost began to fade, leaving only a cold draft behind. They decided to leave the basement and return to the surface. Along the way, they saw an old staircase leading up. As they climbed it, they heard the sounds of footsteps and whispers surrounding them. It seemed the ghosts were not going to let them go easily. Finally, they returned to the hospital's main hall. It was just as dark and eerie as before. The ghosts continued to pursue them, and the team felt their strength waning. Mark pointed to the door leading to the exit, and they ran towards it. They ran out of the abandoned buildings. Shaking and terrified, they realized they had faced the true horrors of the past. Mark turned off the camera and, catching his breath, said, "We saw things that should never have been revealed." If you enjoyed our story, be sure to subscribe to our channel, like, and leave a comment. We are new to this, and your support means a lot to us. Hit the bell so you don't miss new videos about the scariest and most mysterious places. Remember, sometimes the past can be much scarier than the present. Thank you for being with us, and see you in the next videos where we will continue to uncover the most terrifying secrets of our world.